What you're about to see now is just synchronized ambition beyond adhesion, and we both lose the rear end coming out of that corner. Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome to round 16 for this Singapore Grand Prix in this IRC F1 2020 league. And as you can very well read from the title, this was a race that I would very much like to forget, and just the combination of bad driving and bad luck, I think, ruined this race for me. But firstly, coming out on the soft tires in this quali session just to get warmed up, because the plan was to qualify on the mediums and then switch on to the hards. But let me take you around for the fastest lap, which I did in this session. And just before starting my flying lap, you can see I had to let go some of the traffic behind me, and as a result I think I had very cold tires starting this lap. So that was an issue, and I knew that I would be suffering in sector 1. So starting this lap, coming out of the penultimate corner, and you have to have a very solid drive out of this corner to have maximum straight line speed coming up onto the start finish straight. DRS is available, and then coming up into turn 1 just after the 100, braking in a straight line and then throwing the car in, lots of curb usage on entry, and then slow it down and keep a tight line for this next exit, because there's a ton of time to be had in this sector 1 if you get that right. Into this next right hander, and not ideal, to be honest. You need to be slower in and then faster out. I kind of carried too much speed into the corner, and that ruined the exit for me, and as a result you lose time for this entire straight. Just after the 100, again braking in a straight line and then on the limit pretty much, because one more centimeter to the right and that lap was invalidated on the exit. But into this next left hander, very important to carry that momentum, and fourth gear is ideal for that, I think, in quali at least. And then into the very tricky section of sector 2 on this track, so very conservative on this left hander to set up this right, maximum curb usage just on the limit. And then this section, I could never get this sequence of corners right, but I think on this occasion it was just about decent, and we are about 3/10 up on our personal best, which was a 14.9 I believe. But after the 100, just braking in a straight line, and then this section is all about carrying that momentum, carrying that maximum minimum speed. And then into this right and left section, very important to focus on getting slower in and then faster out. And then under the grandstand into this left and right sequence, third gear, carry maximum minimum speed again. And if you're not ideal through that section, there is a front wing to be lost. But you have to get into your rhythm for this lap around Singapore, and I think sectors 2 and 3 were pretty in the rhythm for me. But that first sector cost me dear, because starting on those cold tires, I just couldn't capitalize on my time. I think there were about 1 or 2 tenths that I could have had, but I would have to settle for a 34.6 in quali, and I was not too unhappy. I think P3 was possible, but looking at the rest of the race, we would realize that this was one of the high points of the weekend. But starting on the medium and then switching on to the hards, a simple one-stop strategy, and then underfueling the car by 1 lap. So coming up onto the formation lap, and I think it's just very routine stuff, just getting the temperatures right on all 4 tires, and this would be a very crucial start. But it's also very important to not have any damage on the car, because that's just very easy to get around Singapore. But it slides out in Singapore, and we get a decent start coming up into turn 1. So we have the better run on the McLaren, but just going up into turn 1, I take the cautious line and I brake early and almost donate my front wing to the back of the McLaren into T3. So not the ideal start sequence, but at this point I was just happy to not have any damage and still be in the same position. But coming out of that turn, you can see the Williams has a better run, and at this time I was not really expecting him to go for a move down the inside, which was a fault now in hindsight, because I could have been more aggressive on this lap 1. But going up into this right hander, I tried to be on the inside and then squeeze him for room on the outside, but he just holds his line, and then into this left hander he absolutely sends it over the curbs. So I couldn't really complain. He had the inside, and I think he was kind of entitled to the racing line there, and I think it was just not ideal car placement on my part. I think I could have let him go. That would have saved me from losing 2 more positions. But yeah, you just on the receiving end at times, and you have to just get on with it. So coming out of this slow section on lap 1, and we are in P8, but I knew that this was a mistake that would cost me in the long run. So on the very next lap itself, and you can see we're following the Mercedes as closely as possible, and I knew that one mistake from this car in front and I would have to be there to capitalize on that. So trying to get the better exit out of this hairpin and try for a move after the straight, but he's using his battery, and I just didn't want to use too much ERS at the starting phase. But into this corner he goes in a little deep, and I knew that I had to capitalize on this opportunity as quickly as possible, so I instantly switched the engine up and going to overtake. And this was a very late and aggressive move, but I just had to get that position, and thankfully there was no damage in either of the cars. So on the very next lap itself, and we've closed down 2 seconds to the Red Bull in front, and I knew that I had to get past him as well as quickly as possible, because if you look on the minimap on the bottom left, you can see the Renault just breaking free, because that is what you do when you are in clean air. But I knew that I had to get past this Red Bull as soon as possible. And coming up onto the very next lap itself and into turn 1, you can see DRS has been enabled now, so I knew that I had to set him up for this next DRS straight. And going up into turn 4, I would be just focusing on getting the better exit and then using overtake to get past. So I get the better exit, and then we're on power as soon as possible. But going down the inside, I think he just doesn't expect us to close up so quickly, and that would have been ugly if it made contact with the wall. But thankfully there was no contact, and I think both cars survived without any damage. But on the very next lap, again we have closed up to this pack in front, which is being slowed down by one of the slow McLarens, which started on the soft tires. So just battling with one car was so stressful, and so touch and go every time. You have to get past 3 cars now, so I knew that I just had to focus on the consistency, and if other people made mistakes, I just had to be there to capitalize. But out of this turn 3 on lap 6, and we get ever so slightly out of shape, and that gets the Mercedes interested, who I think started after P, I think he was P14 on the start. So just a stellar drive from him as well to close up so much in just a matter of 6 laps. But going up into this braking zone, I go semi-defensive into the braking zone, but he sends it down the inside, and thankfully leaves us room on the outside, and we have the inside for this next right-hander, and I squeeze him for room on the outside. So we live to fight another day. And just in front of us, while all of this was happening, you can see that both cars are now past the McLaren. So I knew that I had to get past the McLaren as well before it's too late. And through this very slow section, and you can see how much we're closing, and the Williams, which is broken free from this pack, is already 1 second in front, and then going up into this hairpin. So the Mercedes also ever so slightly interested in getting his nose in there, and I had to give him space. But into this braking zone, just thinking about going for a move down the inside, but we realized that we were way too far back. But thankfully on this lap, the McLaren peels into the pits, and just in a matter of a couple of sectors, you can see the Williams and the Ferrari in front, they've broken free, and I've gained 2 seconds on us. So that just goes to show how much you lose when you're following a slow car. And as a result, you can see the Renault in front on the minimap just leading very comfortably. So you just do not want to be in traffic when you're in Singapore. And on this occasion, again, the Mercedes has a better run, so I try to go semi-defensive again, but he sends it down the inside. And on this occasion, I just cannot do anything, and I think he used a lot of his ERS, but I just did not want to deploy much of my battery on that occasion, because I knew that it gets very crucial to have good battery levels towards the end of the race. But into the slow section on lap 8, and just the slightest of oversteering moments, and that is how fine the margins are in Singapore. I lose half of my front wing, so I knew that I had to pit. And while thinking about the strategy and everything, it just plays so much on your mind that I get the dumbest penalty I've had in this season. But coming out on the hard tires behind this racing point, and the McLaren which pit in front of us on lap 5, so while I would be getting past these cars, I would still be losing time to the Williams and the Ferrari in front, which were in P2 and P3. And I knew that it was just not the ideal position to be in, and I think it was just not a very intelligent drive for me in this first stint at least. But you can see the racing point gets out of shape ever so slightly, and I knew that I had to get a move very quickly. And you can see from the rear red light flashing that he's under 10% battery as well, so I just used my battery and sent it down the inside, run wide ever so slightly, but I think I get the move done. And we're into P11 now, and we have to get past this McLaren again, and I have to get that done very soon, because all this while I'm losing time to the Williams and the Ferrari, who I'm really fighting with, who are in P2 and P3. So finally on lap 13 we get the better run, and going up into T1 he leaves the inside door open and we just have the better line into this T3, so we squeeze him on exit a little bit and we get that move done, as well as we're now about 7 seconds behind the Ferrari. So that was the time I lost in traffic, and I knew that I had to get close as soon as possible. And on the very next lap itself you can see that I'm pushing really hard as I improve on all of my 3 sectors, and we set the fastest lap of the race, that is a 39.4, which is not really fast, to be honest. I've gone faster in practice, but what you're about to see now is just synchronized ambition beyond adhesion, and we both lose the rear end coming out of that corner, and he just has a little damage which triggers the virtual safety car. So yeah, a virtual safety car on lap 15, although I would have liked a proper safety car, but it was just not an incident that was big enough to trigger a proper safety car. And coming to the end of lap 23 now, and you can see that we've now just 2 seconds behind the Ferrari, so we've closed down about 4 seconds in a matter of 6 laps, but we finally get a safety car on lap 23, and this was just going to be crucial with the strategy. So we chose to go on the soft tires, which meant we lose one track position to the Renault in front, as we get hit from behind by the McLaren, which if you make any contact, even though if you're not at fault, even if somebody hits you from behind, the game gives you a 5-second penalty, and it does so for both cars. So yeah, 5 more seconds added to my penalty tally, which is now to 11 seconds, and I knew that I just had to forget about these 5 seconds which I received, and I just had to focus on the safety car restart. So at the safety car restart, just trying to get as close as possible to the Renault, because I just needed to get past as quickly as possible, because you can see the Ferrari in front of IRC Not So Masoom is already 1.7 seconds in front of me, and I was fighting with him for this on-track P3. So getting the right exit out of this turn 4 on this lap, but the Renault in front also has a full battery, so he can deploy his overtake mode, and I just cannot close up enough on this occasion into this braking zone, but into this right-hander again, just trying to make him think just before the braking zone, just trying to occupy his mirrors, and just trying to force him into errors. But yeah, he just has, he's not making any mistakes so far. So out of this left-hander again, and we try to occupy his mirrors on the straight, but it's just very tough to get really close in this slow section, and you're always risking damage when you're doing that. But out of this slow kink, and I thought I had the pace to go down the inside, but yeah, what you're seeing right now was really bad judgment, and he was not happy with the move. And to be fair, if I were in his position, I would be unhappy as well. So yeah, with this timing of the virtual safety car as well, I think I could have reacted quicker, but I just focused too much on getting that braking right, and yeah, it was just something that I'm not really proud of. But on the very next lap, and just driving every lap now like it was a quali lap, and I just wanted to get as close as possible to the Ferrari in front, because if he makes a mistake or if something happens late in the race, I just needed to be there to capitalize. And you can see that we have a gap of about 2.2 seconds on this lap, and on the very next lap itself you can see that we've closed down the gap to about 1.1 seconds. But on this penultimate lap into sector 2, I knew that if I could get really close for these last 2 laps, something can happen, and something did happen, but it was just not something that I'd planned, and he lost his rear end out of that left-hander, and he just came back onto the track. There was nothing that he could have done. I was expecting the game fully to ghost his car, because the game usually does that, and for good measure I'd be serving a 5-second penalty in the pits as well. So on this very last lap itself, I would be coming out of the pits on these soft tires, and while I ruined my race with my own driving, in the first stint and a little in the second stint, on the penultimate lap, just luck did it for me. And in hindsight, I think I could have just slowed down more and weaved to the left, but at that speed, in that split second, I just couldn't make a decision early enough, and that meant that we would be finishing in P8. So a couple of bad races, firstly with P4 in Monza in the rain, and then secondly P8 in Singapore, just not really ideal. And yeah, the gap to P1 in the championship is widening very uncomfortably for me. So a tough race, a race that I would like to forget. But if you happen to enjoy that, then make sure you give this one a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. There are 6 rounds remaining in this season, and I would be giving it everything I can for the remainder of the season. But thank you for watching, thank you for staying till the end, and until the next time, until the next video, just stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you in the next one.